Having given Faith these items, we continue scanning left to right until we run into someone's number 2 marker. And Greg is the person whose number 2 marker we run into before running into anyone else's number 2 marker. The fact that he's tied here with Faith for the location of the number 2 marker doesn't matter because Faith has already gotten a share. So her markers have been removed from the table, we can imagine, or we just ignore them. Right? So Greg is the one who receives his second minimum fair share. Now here's the slightly tricky part and a common source of student mistakes. Greg's second minimum fair share goes from G1 to G2 only. It's just these 2 items, these 2 oranges. This apple right here is outside of Greg's second minimum fair share. But wait, what happens to this apple? We didn't give it to Faith, and we're not giving it to Greg, so what do we do with it? Well, it goes into the leftover bin. In very much the same way that the method of sealed bids produces a surplus at the end of the first settlement, which has to be divided up later, this method, the method of markers, produces leftover items, which are going to have to be distributed in some way later on. It's important to remind yourself of this, that there can be leftover items here, because this is actually a very common student mistake, to think that the A has to be part of Greg's share, when in fact Greg's share is only defined by Greg's markers. Now that Greg has been taken care of, he's received a fair share, he can step away. He'll either remove his markers altogether from the table, or will just ignore them, henceforth. The question now is, who gets share number 3? Who gets their third minimum fair share? We continue scanning left to right until someone's number 3 marker comes up. F3 doesn't count because Faith has already been taken care of. So we arrive right here, where there's a tie between Ed and Hannah, who haven't gotten anything yet, and there's a tie for who has the honor of placing their third marker before the other person, right? Neither one placed their third marker before the other person. So they're tied, and we have no real way of breaking the tie besides just flipping a coin. Suppose Ed wins the coin toss. Then he receives his third minimum fair share. That means everything from E2 to E3. So this pair, and that apple. And if he's receiving his third minimum fair share, then Hannah, who hasn't gotten anything yet, must necessarily receive her fourth minimum fair share. So this pair, this apple, and that orange. If it plays out this way, with Ed winning the coin toss, then this apple will also go into the leftover bin. If, on the other hand, Hannah is the one who wins the coin toss, which means that Hannah is the one who receives her third fair share, then she gets everything from H2 to H3, so this pear and this apple, that is her third fair share. The markers tell us that's her third fair share. That means that Ed gets his fourth fair share. But now there are 2 items that go into the leftover bin, instead of just that one. Either way, each player is going to receive exactly a minimum fair share, no more and no less. As of the completion of the allocation stage, every player has received a fair share, and in fact exactly a minimum fair share. This is very much analogous to the first settlement in the method of sealed bids, after which every player has exactly a minimum fair share, no more and no less. The method of sealed bids proceeds from that point to divide the surplus money, and in the same way, the method of markers proceeds to distribute the leftover items if there are any. In the example we just did, there are indeed some leftover items. Please go on to the next video.